Maybe it's not like High School Musical at all, but like some of them are a little more scary than sad, but like either way, you're gonna cry. I guess you could say it's enemies to lovers, but they're not really like enemies per se. Clearly, I like queer heartbreaks. Hello everybody, and as you guys probably know, it is Pride Month, which means it is time for some queer book recommendations. So I'm bringing you a little short series of 3 videos that are going to be different collections of like queer books that I think you guys have probably not heard of. And if you have, good for you. This video is going to focus on Sapphic romances. The next video will focus on gay men loving men romances, and the final video will focus on queer books as a general. So it's mostly like non-romance books. Some of them are, but most of them focus just more on like the queer journey. So let's get into the Sapphic book recommendations. I have broken down all the Sapphic books I have to recommend to you into 3 categories. We have I Am So Lonely. This category is like your wholesome, sweet romances that just make you like be like, man, I want a girlfriend. Why can't I have a girlfriend too? Kind of vibe to them. Our next category is magic and lesbians. They're lesbians, and there's magic involved. What more can I say? And then our final category is going to be stop, I'm literally going to cry. This is the sad, you're going to want to tear your heart out of your chest romances that I have to offer with you guys. Some of them are a little more scary than sad, but like either way, you're going to cry. Let's get started with the I Am So Lonely category. First up in our I Am So Lonely category, we have She Gets the Girl by Allison Dickerson and Rachel Lippincott. I hope I said that right. This book is, if I'm looking over, it's because there's notes over here. This book is about Molly and Alex, and I have written down here that Molly and Alex meet on their college campus, and Molly asks Alex to help her get the girl she has had a crush on for years. Alex agrees only because she has to prove to her ex that she is not selfish. Together, Alex and Molly go on fake dates and talk about everything flirting. As the two get to know each other, Molly's not sure if her crush is the one she's been doing all this for. This book is genuinely so sweet. I think I read this last summer, and I read it in like 2 days, 3 days, which like for some people that's not really fast. For me, that's fast. It usually takes me like a week or 2 to get through a book, especially like one of like this size. So like reading this in like 2 or 3 days meant that like I was consumed. I was just reading. And also the pages are like absolutely adorable. I could not recommend it more if you're looking for just like wholesome sapphic representation. This is your book. Our next book is She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quindell. Hopefully I said that right too. She Drives Me Crazy is another like super sweet, wholesome sapphic book, but it's not enemies to lovers. Well, kind of, or like nemesises to lovers. I don't know. They're not necessarily enemies, but they don't get along either. So take that as frenemies, I suppose. They're not friends at all either. I don't know. I guess you could say it's enemies to lovers, but they're not really like enemies per se. Now this one is about Scotty, who after an embarrassing loss to her ex-girlfriend's basketball team in their first basketball game of the season, Scotty gets in a fender bender with the worst possible person, her nemesis, Irene Abraham, head cheerleader of the Fighting Reindeers. When the accident sends Irene's car to the shop for a few weeks, the girls are forced to carpool. Their rocky start gets only bumpier. But when an opportunity arises for Scotty to get back at her toxic ex and climb her school social ladder, she bribes Irene into a fake dating scheme and that threatens to reveal some true feelings. So yeah, it's also got fake dating. I kind of forgot about that, but it's great. It's great. This is another one that I read in a few days. It's just like, it's got, oh, hello, Ori. Hello. Are you here for the Sapphic book recommendations? So this book, it is such a nice, like, refreshing break from, like, all the sadness that is a lot of queer books. And it's just, like, It's purely a wholesome sports book. You got the whole basketball team involved, you got the whole cheerleading team involved, you got the high school drama. It's like High School Musical with like the theater and like basketball, but if you like shoved it into a queer book and they were cheerleaders instead. So maybe it's not like High School Musical at all. Our last and final book in the I Am So Lonely category is Some Girls Do. Now this one, I debated if it belonged in this category, if the stop I'm literally going to sob category, because this book does have a lot of like very tense and like serious moments that like could make you cry. But I felt like overall it was way too like there are a lot of the scenes were like way too just like happy and like wholesome for it to be completely sad. So it is being put here in this category. But now you're probably wondering, what is this book actually about? So let me enlighten you. This book is about Ruby and Morgan, who have very different lives. Morgan is an open lesbian with endless family support, and Ruby is very much the opposite. Her worst fear is her mom finding out that she is not straight. These two girls' worlds collide when Ruby accidentally hits Morgan with her car because Morgan ran out in front of it. From there, the two realize how different their lives are, yet they still choose to fight for what might be more than friendship. It's just like, it's heartbreaking, but it's also just like so real. It's human. It's very human in a like wholesome yet tragic way. And I think that's what makes it great. So our next category is magic and lesbians. Our first book in the Magic and Lesbians category is A Fire in the Stars by Audrey Colhurst. This book is about a kingdom where magic is forbidden, and Princess Donna must hide her affinity from fire. When an assassination happens shortly before her wedding to the Prince of Minora, Donna must hold her secret close and figure out who the assassin is before her secret gets revealed. In order to do this, she teams up with the prince's sister, Mare, a standoffish girl she's never liked. As they work together, Donna begins to think she has eyes for the other sibling. From what I remember of this book, it's very sweet and wholesome and just like, it's a fantasy. You got your royal family, you got your royal family dramatics, you got your magic, you got your hidden magic, you got your secrets about magic, you got your archery, you got all this jazz shoved in here. And I think the way they handle like, because she's betrothed to the prince, it's not like a willing marriage. So like her being interested in the sibling is very interesting dynamic to have going place, especially with like the mystery going on and both of like their backgrounds. It's just a fun little mystery with some lesbians. What's not to enjoy? And now our final book and our second book in Magics and Lesbians is Ash by Melinda Lowe. This book, if you can't tell by the cover alone, is absolutely one of my favorite books. I have read it 3 or 4 times already, I think. I read it first in 6th grade, I read it again freshman year, and I read it again senior year, and I think I might have read it at one point in between that time span, but I do not remember. It is absolutely amazing. This book is literally one of my favorite books of all time. It is a Cinderella retelling about a young girl that lives in a world where the Fae have pretty much become nothing but a myth, but in her small village, they are more prevalent than anywhere else. When her father and her mother die, she's shipped away to her stepmother's house in the city where the Fae are again considered nothing but a myth. She tends to escape to the forest to escape the brutal reality of having to be a maid to her stepmother, where she meets a Fae man, Sidian, I believe is how you say his name. And then later, while still in the forest, she meets the king's huntress, and when she's invited to go on the hunt with the king's huntress, she indebts herself to Sidian, asking to be able to go without her stepparents finding out, her stepmom finding out, step-siblings. It's then that Ash realizes that it might be more than friendship between her and the huntress, but she has pretty much indebted herself to Sidian. And how is she gonna get out of that? This book is like It's so dark, but like I love it. I love everything about it. It's the first half kind of drags a bit because it's establishing your setting, your characters, like why Ash is the way Ash is in like her relationship with Sidian and like all the other characters essentially. You cover years of this girl's life in the span of like 400 pages, and it is genuinely such a wonderful book. And I don't hear people talking about this in like the Sapphic book community nearly as much as I think I've heard like one person recommend this book before. And I feel like just more people need to read this book. It is such an amazing book, and Melinda Lowe is an amazing author, and a lot of her books are very like under recommended in my opinion. I've only read 2 of her books, and both of them have been like amazing. They have been showstoppers. I've loved them. And they're actually both on this list. So as everybody, please read it. Please, I am begging. I am literally begging more people to read this book. Please read it. Please. So our last and final category is stop. I'm literally going to cry. First off, we have like grab the book is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This book is another one that like I absolutely adore, but it's one that I didn't think I was going to like. It's a dark academia, like not horror per se. I guess you could call it a thriller, kinda. I don't want to give it those categories because I feel like it's not gonna like. It's mostly just dark academia. I feel like that's where it fits best. Let me fill you in. Felicity Morrow left school after the death of her girlfriend and returned, realizing that everyone believes that she killed her girlfriend. The school also has a new girl named Ellis, who is a famous writer and is there to study the school's history. Felicity is annoyed by Ellis's pompous attitude and tries to ignore her. However, they both have their research based on the founding of the school and end up having to work together to get more information. While working together, they realize that maybe the other's not as annoying as they thought and tend to get themselves over their heads in information about the school into dangerous situations along the way. This book is genuinely like, it's a wild ride. You never know what you're going to get. It is so good. It also has an unreliable narrator, which is really interesting because you just like, you don't get really any of the information. You get the information, but you get such a warped sense of it until you get to the end of the book. And that's when like everything finally like filters into place and you get like the full story of everything. And it is so fascinating that way. And honestly, I'm not going to say much more because I think just going in blind is genuinely the best way to like experience the book. You will cry though. You will probably end up crying at some point. Like it's a bit intense. Now our next book is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Mohart and Max Gladstone. This is a shorter book. It's very small, very quick read. It is very complicated, I'd say. You don't have to be prepared to like analyze literature and like be in a sci-fi mood because it is a sci-fi kind of. But it's a really interesting like take on a book. Now let me explain what it is to you. Red and Blue are change agents who work for rival time-traveling agencies. Blue for the Garden, a vast organic consciousness. Red works for the agency, a technophobia. So it's basically like nature versus technology. While traveling to different strands of history and time to change history, they start to write letters to each other, slowly falling in love. So it's kind of like an enemies to lovers, and it is very like interesting because the way they time travel, you never really know where they are or like how old they are or like have a full understanding of like the world they're in. And I think that's by design. And it's really fascinating, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're in like an intense like I'm trying to think of the word, a very intense like mood to just like read something that you have to like tear apart to understand. This is amazing for that. Then our next book in this category is Echo After Echo. Echo After Echo is about Zara Evans, who has come to the theater in hopes to meet the visionary Leopardo Henderson to play her dream role in Echo and Artisan. the Greek tragedy that has taught her everything she knows about love. When the director asks Zara to promise that she will have no outside commitments, no distractions, it's easy to say yes. But it's hard to not be distracted when there's a death at the theater and another, especially when Zara doesn't know if they're accidents or murder or curse that has come in threes. It's hard not to be distracted when assistant light director Ellie Vasquez, a girl made of tattoos and abrupt laughs and every form of light, looks at Zara. It's hard not to fall in love. This is just like, it's such a good book. There's a lot going on here, though. I would definitely be aware of like certain trigger warnings in it. I would look up some trigger warnings because there is obviously death, but I am going to tell you now, the director guy is really weird, and there's a lot of like really weird things that happen that are not okay, and I just want you guys to be safe. So like, make sure you look up trigger warnings, and this is a book that you're gonna be like okay reading, because like it's intense, and I wish I knew going into it what I was getting myself into, because like I think I would have been significantly more mentally prepared for like the complexity of this than just like knowing it was a like murder mystery and that it was Sapphic, because there's a lot more in here that's a little bit more intense, and I feel like you should be aware about and read it if it's something you know or feel that you will be okay reading. Anyways, it's a really good book. If you're comfortable reading it, read it. I recommend it a lot. It's really good. It's just something, as I said, you need to be like aware of the trigger warnings for. And now our last book of the recommendation list, and the last of this category, is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This book, like Ash, is definitely made its way up my list of like favorite books. This one did take me quite a while to get through. It's pretty hefty, and at points it can be a little slow, but I think that's by design. I'm just impatient. This book is about Lily Hugh, who has always felt different. She likes science and math. She doesn't care about fashion and boys. When she picks up a book at a market about two girls falling in love, everything clicks into place. That year at school, she gets closer to this girl, Kath, who has been in her classes for a while. Kath introduces her to the Telegraph Club, a place for queer women to be themselves. As Lily learns more about herself, she realizes how dangerous the world can be for people like her. It's such a good book because not only does it consider like what it was like to be a queer woman in the 50s, but it also considers the Red Scare and the Communist Scare, because Lily is Chinese. And so it's like considering that aspect of it, and like how her being who she truly is could even impact her family in like a political sense. It's overall, it's an amazing book, and I highly recommend it. It is wonderful. It is great. It will make you cry. You will sob, I promise you. There are multiple parts in this book where you're just like, no, how could they? It's great. It's heartbreaking. And if you can't tell, clearly I like queer heartbreaks, because that is mostly what this list is compiled of. Books that will make you cry. Alright, well that is all of the Sapphic book recommendations I have for you in this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you will be willing to pick up a few of these books if you have not already. And I look forward to seeing you in the next part. Adios. Did you just land on Ori? Okay, anyhow.